Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are leaving the court. We're walking past the scorer's table, stepping over that imaginary line, and taking a seat on the bench.
Or maybe not even the bench. We're standing in that little box, that high-pressure rectangle right in front of the bench.
Exactly. We aren't talking about the guys with the signature shoes today. We're talking about the architects, the people in the expensive suits, or the team-branded quarter zips, depending on the era.
Right. The ones losing sleep, going gray, screaming until they lose their voices so that we can all enjoy the highlights on TV.
We are doing a deep dive into the NBA Coach of the Year award.
And it is, I think, the most fascinating and honestly the most paradoxical award in all of professional sports.
How so? Paradoxical in what way?
Well, think about it. You can count points, you can track shooting percentages, rebounds per game. Those are all hard numbers. They're objective. But how do you quantify leadership? How do you possibly put a number on managing a locker room full of, multi-millionaire egos? Or on the decision to call a specific timeout with 1.8 seconds left that changes an entire season? You can't.
And that's really the mission today, isn't it? We're going to try to quantify the unquantifiable. And we're doing this from our vantage point here in early 2026, looking back at the whole history of this award, including the most recent winner.
Yep, the 2024-25 season winner, Kenny Atkinson of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Which is a great place to set the stage. Because Atkinson really represents one very specific flavor of this award.
Oh, absolutely. Leading the Cavs to a 64-18 record. I mean, that is no small feat.
Yeah.
That fits the classic profile of what I'd call dominance.
Dominant.
It's about taking a roster that's already talented and just maximizing its potential to an extreme degree. But as we're going to find out, dominance isn't the only way to win this trophy. Sometimes it's not even the best way.
64 wins is a juggernaut season, no question. But before we break down the winners, the weirdos, and the absolute legends of this award, we need to look at the prize itself, the physical object.
The Red Auerbach Trophy.
The Red Auerbach Trophy. Now, if you're a casual fan, you know the name Celtics, you probably know the name Red, and you definitely visualize a cigar.
The victory cigar, of course.
But I feel like the modern fan might not totally grasp why this specific man is the standard bearer for the entire profession. I mean, why is his name on the hardware?
You absolutely cannot tell the story of the NBA without Red Auerbach. He's the patriarch. He is the blueprint.
That's a strong statement.
It is. We're talking about the man who built the Boston Celtics dynasty. Between 1956 and 1966, he led that team to 9 NBA championships.
Yeah, say that again? 9.
9 titles in 10 years.
That is actually absurd. In modern sports, we talk about a dynasty. If a team wins, 2 and 3 years? Maybe 3 and 5. 9 and 10 sounds like a typo.
It does, doesn't it? It suggests a level of monopoly on winning that is just. It's impossible today. But Red wasn't just about winning. He was about control. He invented the modern archetype of the NBA coach.
What do you mean by that?
The psychological warfare with other teams, the constant manipulation of the referees, lighting up those victory cigars on the bench before the game was even technically over. Just total alpha dog stuff.
And he won this specific award himself, right?
He did in the 1964-65 season. So when a coach like Kenny Atkinson lifts that trophy today, they are holding a piece of history that represents the absolute apex of the job. It's named after the guy who basically invented the job as we know it.
It sets a pretty high bar. So if Red is the gold standard, how on earth do we decide who meets that standard every year? Because when I was going through our source material, the criteria seemed, slippery.
That's a good word for it.
It's not like the scoring title where you just do the math and you have a winner. Who is actually making this call?
It is entirely subjective, and that's where the fun and the controversy usually starts. The voting body is made up of a panel of sports writers and broadcasters from across the United States and Canada.
So the media.
The media. The beat writers, the national columnists, the people who are watching the league day in and day out, they're the ones who are constructing the narrative of the season.
And they aren't just picking one name off a list, are they? It's a weighted system.
Correct. It works very similarly to the MVP voting. Each voter casts a ballot for first, second, and third place.
And the points are?
A first-place vote is worth 5 points, second is worth 3 points, and third place gets you 1 point. You tally it all up, and the coach with the highest score wins.
This is interesting because it introduces a kind of strategic element, or at least a mathematical quirk. I mean, theoretically, you could have a coach who is very polarizing, right?
Hmm.
Maybe half the voters think he's a genius, the other half think he just has good players. So he might get a lot of first-place votes, but be left off other ballots entirely.
While a safer pick, who everyone agrees did a pretty good job, could rack up a ton of second and third place votes and sneak out a win.
Has that ever happened?
It is mathematically possible, though, to be fair. Historically, the person with the most first-place votes usually does end up winning, but the real friction, the real debate, comes from the official definition of the award.
Let's hear it.
The award is given to the coach deemed, and I'm quoting the source material here, most integral to their team's success in the regular season.
Okay. Integral to success. That is a phrase that is doing a massive amount of heavy lifting.
A truly heroic amount. Because success, as a concept, means completely different things to different franchises.
Right. And this is the key to understanding this whole deep dive today. For a team like, say, the Boston Celtics or the Lakers, success might mean 60 wins and a #1 seed. Anything less is a failure.
Absolutely. But for a team like, I don't know, the Orlando Magic or the Utah Jazz in a rebuilding year, success might be winning 42 games and just sneaking into the playoffs when everyone, all the experts, predicted they'd only win 20.
So the award creates this sliding scale. It almost feels like it rewards the overachiever more often than the dominator.
That is the most common narrative we see year after year. We call it the expectation gap. The award often goes to the coach who defied the preseason betting odds the most.
It's a story award.
It's a story award. If you were supposed to be bad and you turned out to be decent, you were a genius. If you were supposed to be great and you were just great, well, you just did your job. The voters love a story of redemption, a story of surprise.
That seems a little unfair to the coaches of the super teams, doesn't it? I mean, managing superstars is a job in itself. Keeping 3 guys who all think they should be the MVP happy and playing together, that's an art form.
It is, and we will definitely get to that tension later on. But for now, let's look at the history. The award started in the 1962-63 season.
Harry Gallatin of the St. Louis Hawks, first winner.
That's him. And since then, we have had 31 distinct winners. That's a lot of turnover.
It really reflects the volatility of the job, I think.
Yeah.
Coaching in the NBA is not exactly a job with high security.
Not at all. But within that list of 41 names, there are the Titans, the select few who managed to win it not once, not twice, but 3 times.
The Mount Rushmore of the sidelines, it's a very, very short list. Only 3 men have done it, and I want to break them down because they seem to represent 3 totally different styles of coaching greatness.
They really do.
First up, we have Don Nelson.
Nelly, the mad scientist.
He won it twice with the Milwaukee Bucks in the 80s. That's 1983 and 1985, and then again with the Golden State Warriors in 1992.
Right.
When people hear Don Nelson, especially modern fans, they usually think of that Warriors era. Run TMC. Can you explain what that was for the listener who might just see it as, a retro T-shirt design?
Run TMC stood for Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin. It was a play on the rap group Run DMC, of course.
Sure.
But on the court, it was. It was revolutionary.
In what way?
Well, Nelson looked at his roster, and he realized he didn't have a dominant big man. This was an era where you had to have a Patrick Ewing or a Hakeem Olajuwon to win. You just did.
It was the law of the land.
It was. So Nelly decided to just flip the script entirely. He decided to just outrun everyone. He played what came to be known as Nelly ball.
Nelly ball.
It meant playing with small lineups, a frenetic pace, constantly creating mismatches, and shooting really early in the shot clock. He was essentially playing a modern style of basketball 30 years before the rest of the league caught up.
So his wins were for innovation. He changed the geometry of the game.
Exactly. He proved that you could win without following the traditional unwritten rules of basketball. His third win in '92 really validated that entire style. He wasn't just managing talent. He was inventing a new way to play the game. He was integral to success because his system was this success. Without his brain, that specific roster just doesn't work.
Okay, so Nelson is the innovator. The next 3-time winner is Pat Riley. To me, he feels more like the motivator, or maybe the cult of personality.
Pat Riley is fascinating because he holds a distinction that nobody else has. Not Red Auerbach, not Phil Jackson, nobody. He is the only coach to win the award with 3 different franchises.
3 different teams. That suggests a level of adaptability, that is. Well, it's pretty rare. Usually a coach has a system, right? And if the players fit that system, great. If not, the coach gets fired. But Riley
Riley didn't have a system. He had a standard. And he could apply that standard anywhere.
Yeah.
Look at the timeline. He wins in 1990 with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Showtime?
The tail end of Showtime, yeah. Magic Johnson, fast breaks, glitz, glamour, the Armani suits on the sideline. It was Hollywood basketball. It was all about finesse and speed.
And then he goes to New York?
And he wins it again in 1993 with the New York Knicks. That Knicks team was the polar opposite of the Lakers. They were arguably the most physical, bruising, defensive-minded team in the entire league.
The bad boys of New York.
Totally. They didn't run past you, they went through you. They would knock you down and stare you down. He completely traded the finesse for the fight.
He went from a Hollywood movie to a street fight.
Yeah.
And then there was a third act.
1997 with the Miami Heat. He goes down to Florida and builds a culture from absolute scratch. He brings that discipline, that Heat culture we still talk about today. The hardest working, best conditioned, most professional, unselfish, toughest, meanest, nastiest team in the NBA. That was his mantra.
And it proves what, exactly?
It proves he wasn't a product of his players. He was the catalyst. He could coach any style, from Showtime to grind it out, as long as the end result was winning.
So we have the innovator in Nelson, the chameleon in Riley, and then the third titan, Gregg Popovich.
Pop, the model of consistency, the GO to many people.
And he won all three of his awards, 2003, 2012, and 2014, with the same team.
The San Antonio Spurs, all of them.
Which is an achievement in longevity alone. In the modern NBA, staying with one team for 20-plus years is basically unheard of. Coaches usually have a shelf life of, 3 or 4 years before the message gets stale and the players just tune them out.
Popovich is unique. He built an entire ecosystem in San Antonio that allowed him to evolve as the game evolved. But there's a correlation with him that separates him from the others we just mentioned. A really important one.
Okay.
Popovich is the only recipient to win the Coach of the Year award and the NBA championship in the same season twice.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause on that. You're saying he did it twice. The way you phrase that implies that usually the Coach of the Year doesn't win the championship.
You have hit the nail directly on the head. That brings us to what's known as the curse, or at least the major disconnect between this award and the actual goal of the sport, which is winning a title.
I was shocked by this stat when I was going through the research. You would just assume that the Coach of the Year is the guy holding the Larry O'Brien trophy at the parade, but you're saying that is almost never the case.
The data is just staggering. Since the award began way back in 1963, only 5 coaches have won the Coach of the Year and the championship in the same season.
5. That's it. In over 60 years of this award. That seems statistically impossible if the award is actually identifying the best coach in the league.
Just 5. It's such an exclusive club, we should probably list them.
Please do.
You have Red Auerbach, of course, in 1965. You have Red Holzman with the Knicks in 1970. Bill Sharman with the Lakers in 1972.
Okay.
Then there's a massive drought. Nobody does it for 24 years.
24 years.
Until Phil Jackson with the 72-win Bulls in 1996. And finally, Gregg Popovich, who did it twice in 03 and 14. That's the entire list.
So, statistically speaking, if your team's coach is named Coach of the Year in April, you should probably be a little worried about your playoff chances in May.
It is almost a bad omen, but it makes perfect sense when you think back to the criteria we discussed earlier.
The overachiever narrative.
Exactly. The award is for the regular season. It's voted on before the playoffs even conclude. It rewards the team that surprised everyone. But championship teams usually aren't overachievers. They're dominant veteran teams who often cruise a bit through the regular season to save their energy for the real fight in the playoffs.
That's a great point. The team that wins 65 games might be kind of boring. The story isn't as good. The team that wins 48 games when they are projected for 30, that's a fantastic story.
But the 48-win team usually gets crushed in the second round of the playoffs because, at the end of the day, talent wins out in a 7-game series.
The award rewards the journey. The championship rewards the destination.
Perfectly said. The voters are seduced by the narrative of the turnaround. The playoffs, however, are about raw talent and matchups, not nice stories.
There's another sort of unwritten rule that seems to plague this award, the no repeats rule.
This is one of the hardest facts to believe, but it's true. No coach has ever won consecutive Coach of the Year awards, not once in league history.
That can't be right. I mean, surely Phil Jackson had 2 great years in a row. Or Steve Kerr with the Warriors. Or Popovich. Or Eric Spoelstra in Miami.
They all had great years, historic years even, but they never, ever won the award back-to-back.
Why? Why does that happen? Is it just voter fatigue?
It's what I call the hedonic treadmill of expectations.
Yeah.
Let's say you take a really bad team and you win 50 games. You win Coach of the Year, amazing job.
Right.
The next season, everyone expects you to be good. So if you win 55 games, the voters just shrug. They say, well, you're supposed to do that now. You've raised your own bar too high for them.
So to win it again, you would practically have to go 82-0 or something.
Precisely. Unless you make another historic leap like going from 50 wins to 73 wins, you are not getting that trophy 2 years in a row.
Okay.
Once you're established as great, greatness becomes the new baseline. It becomes boring. The voters start looking for the new surprise story.
You become a victim of your own success. Consistency is boring to the voters. That actually explains so much about this award.
It really does.
Speaking of historic leaps and weird stats, I want to move to the section of the deep dive I like to call the anomalies. These are the winners that make you look at the Wikipedia page and say, wait, is that a typo?
There are some wild ones. This is where the internal logic of the award really gets stretched to its limits.
Let's start with the basic idea that you have to be a winner, have a winning record to be Coach of the Year. Apparently that is not true.
Not always, no. We have to go back to the 1966-67 season. The winner was a man named Johnny Kerr.
Johnny Kerr. And his record that season, 33 wins and 48 losses.
He was 15 games under .500.
In any modern context, a coach going 33-48 is probably, cleaning out his office at the end of the season. He is certainly not writing an acceptance speech for a major award.
No.
How on earth did he win?
Context. It's all about the context. Johnny Kerr was coaching the Chicago Bulls. But this was the Bulls' inaugural season. They were an expansion team.
Ah, okay. That's the key. And for those who don't follow the business side of the league, expansion teams are usually designed to fail, right? At least in their first year.
Historically, they are doormats. The expansion draft gives you all the players that the other teams didn't want to protect. You get aging veterans, guys with bad knees, rookies who aren't quite ready. You are expected to win 10, maybe 15 games. You are cannon fodder for the real teams.
So Kerr taking a group of cast-offs and winning 33 games.
And making the playoffs. That's the other crucial part. He dragged an expansion team, a team that didn't exist the year before, into the postseason in year one.
Okay, so in that context, the 33 wins felt like 60 wins because the expectation was literally 0.
Exactly. The voters recognized that he was squeezing water from a stone. It set this incredible precedent that the award is about the job done relative to the resources available. He overperformed the model by such a huge margin that the actual losing record didn't matter at all.
So that explains winning with a losing record. But what about the inverse? Winning the award with a mediocre record and missing the playoffs entirely, is that possible?
It has happened exactly once. The Doc Rivers game. The 1999-2000 season with the Orlando Magic.
This is the famous Heart and Hustle team. I remember this. This was a whole thing.
It was. Doc Rivers coached that team to a 41-41 record, a perfect .500, and his team did not qualify for the postseason. He is the only person to ever win Coach of the Year without making the playoffs.
How does that happen? We just said Johnny Kerr won because he made the playoffs. Doc missed them. What's the logic?
Again, we have to look at the roster and the front office strategy. The Orlando Magic that year had completely and intentionally cleared their books. They traded away all their stars. Penny Hardaway was gone. They were hoarding salary cap space to make a huge run at free agents like Tim Duncan and Grant Hill the following summer.
So the roster they put on the floor that year was...
It was essentially a G League team before the G League really existed. The main guys were Darrell Armstrong, Bo Outlaw, a very young Ben Wallace, before he was Ben Wallace. These were guys who were undrafted, journeymen, guys fighting for 10-day contracts just to stay in the league.
They were supposed to be tanking.
They were projected by some magazines to be the worst team in NBA history. People honestly thought they might win 10 games. The organization probably wanted them to lose to get a high draft pick.
And Doc Rivers messed it all up by winning half his games.
He had them playing with just unbelievable intensity. They pressed full court. They scrapped for everything. They dove for every loose ball. They shocked everyone and finished at .500. And they only missed the 8th seed on a tiebreaker.
So the voters looked at a .500 record and decided that was a more impressive coaching feat than, say, Phil Jackson winning 67 games with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant that exact same year.
Yes. And frankly, it's hard to argue with them. Taking a Ferrari to the finish line is one thing. That's what Phil Jackson did. But taking a bicycle with a flat tire and somehow keeping up with the Ferraris for 82 games, that is something else entirely. It solidified Doc Rivers' reputation for decades to come.
I love that. It really frames coaching as a resource management game. But if we're talking about weird anomalies, we just have to talk about the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors.
Ah, the controversy. the asterisk season.
This whole situation gives me a headache just thinking about it. Okay, let's set the scene for everyone.
It is the 2015-16 season. The Warriors are coming off a championship. They are an absolute machine. They go on to win 73 games, breaking the all-time regular season record set by the '96 Bulls.
So Steve Kerr is the head coach. He wins Coach of the Year. On paper, this is the most obvious slam dunk award in the history of sports. Best record ever, you get the award. Simple.
But
But
Steve Kerr wasn't there for most of it. He missed the first 43 games of the season due to complications from back surgery. That is more than half the season. He was gone.
so who was coaching the team?
His lead assistant, Luke Walton. He stepped in as the interim head coach.
And how did the team do under Walton, the interim coach?
They started the season 24-0. 24-0. It was the best start in NBA history. They were just destroying the entire league.
Okay, so just to be clear, Luke Walton is standing on the sideline. He's calling the timeouts. He's managing the rotations for a team that goes on a historic 24-0 run to start the season, but Steve Kerr gets the trophy.
This is where the NBA rulebook gets very, very rigid. The league has a policy. Wins and losses are officially credited to the head coach of record, even if he is not physically present.
That seems insane.
They do not credit interim coaches with win-loss records unless the head coach is actually fired or resigns. Since Kerr was just on medical leave, every single win that Luke Walton presided over was officially added to Steve Kerr's permanent record.
So the voters must have revolted, right?
They were confused. And it showed up on the ballot. Luke Walton actually received votes for Coach of the Year. He got 1 second-place vote and 2 third-place votes,
Yeah.
which technically shouldn't even have been allowed because he wasn't officially a head coach.
I love that. That's a silent protest by the sports writers. They're basically saying, we know what we saw.
It gets even funnier. The NBA awards Coach of the Month honors throughout the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
In October, November of that season, the Western Conference Coach of the Month was Luke Walton.
You're kidding me. So Luke Walton was the official coach of the month, but Steve Kerr was the coach of the year, based largely on the months that Walton coached.
That is exactly what happened. Steve Kerr even tried to get the league to change it. He publicly said, I didn't coach those games. Luke did. The record should be his. But the NBA said, no, rules are rules.
So what's the big takeaway from that whole mess? Aside from the fact that the NBA loves its bureaucracy.
I think it highlights two things. One, the weirdness of the rules, obviously. But two, and maybe more importantly, it speaks to the power of a system. Steve Kerr had built such a strong culture and such a potent offensive system that the team could essentially run itself or run with a substitute teacher and still be historically great.
So in a strange way, the fact that they won without him proved how good of a coach he was.
That's the argument. He built a self-sustaining machine that didn't need him on the sideline every night.
That's a charitable way to look at it. I just think poor Luke Walton got robbed of a pretty amazing line on his resume.
Well, he did get a head coaching job with the Lakers shortly after, largely off the buzz from that run, so he did okay for himself in the end.
Fair enough. Let's shift gears a little bit to the background of these coaches. We've talked about how it's often former players who become coaches. It's the standard path. I played the game so I can teach the game. But very few are truly great at both.
It's the great player fallacy. We assume that because, say, Magic Johnson saw the game perfectly as a player, he could automatically teach it. But often, the all-time great players make terrible coaches because they just lack patience.
Right. They can't understand why a role player can't just be better.
Exactly. Why don't you just see the pass and throw it? That's what I would do. It's frustrating for them. Just see the floor. Well, not everyone has Hall of Fame court vision.
But there is a very, very small group of men who have mastered both sides of it, the dual threats.
A very exclusive club.
Who are they?
There are only 3 men who have been inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame as both a player and as a coach.
That's an incredibly short list. It has to be one of the rarest achievements in sports.
It is. The 3 are Tom Heinsohn, Bill Sharman, and Lenny Wilkens.
Heinsohn is Mr. Celtic, through and through. He bled green. Sharman, we mentioned earlier, is one of the few to win COI and a title with the Lakers. And Lenny Wilkens was the all-time winningest coach for a very long time.
And what it demonstrates is a complete, 360-degree mastery of the sport. To have the physical gifts and the basketball instincts to be a Hall of Fame player, and then to be able to translate all of that into teaching, strategy, and ego management as a coach. It's a rare combination of left brain and right brain.
You have to be able to do it, and then you have to be able to explain how you did it to someone who has half your talent. That's the hard part.
That is the impossible part for most.
But we are seeing a shift now, aren't we? The modern coach looks different. They aren't always former all-stars. Sometimes they're guys who barely played in college, if at all.
Absolutely. The rise of the video coordinator coach,
Yeah.
the grinder, the guy who worked his way up from the mailroom. But specifically, we are seeing the NBA G League become a real breeding ground for head coaches, not just for players.
The G League, which is the NBA's official minor league, who's the poster child for this new pathway?
Without a doubt, it's Nick Nurse. He won the Coach of the Year with the Toronto Raptors in the 2019-20 season, the year after they won the title.
But before that, he was a lifer in the minors.
Oh, yeah. He was grinding for years in the D League, as it was called then, coaching teams like the Iowa Energy and the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. And he holds a very unique record.
What is it?
He is the only coach to win Coach of the Year in both the NBA and the NBA G League. He won the G League award back in 2011.
That is really cool. It validates the idea that coaching is a craft. It's not just about whether you played in the NBA Finals. It's about logging the hours, drawing up plays in empty gyms in Iowa, riding the bus, and learning how to manage a group of guys who are fighting for their professional lives.
And NBA front offices have absolutely noticed. They're hiring guys like Mark Daigneault in Oklahoma City, another G League alum who just won the award. They are realizing that tactical innovation often comes from the lower leagues, where coaches have to be more creative to win because they don't have a LeBron James to just bail them out of a bad play.
Speaking of Mark Daigneault, he represents the modern era of winners. We're in the mid-2020s now in our timeline. How has the voting changed recently? It feels like the power of the narrative is stronger than ever.
It has, and it's seemingly become more consensus-driven. We had a truly historic moment in the 2022-23 season with Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings.
Light the beam. That was such a fun season to watch. I remember seeing that giant purple laser shooting into the night sky after every win.
It is a whole cultural phenomenon, and the voters were swept up, and Mike Brown became the first unanimous Coach of the Year in NBA history.
Wait, really? Unanimous? We just talked about the 73-win Warriors. We talked about the 72-win Bulls. None of those coaches were unanimous winners.
Nope. In all those years, there was always at least one writer who voted for someone else. Maybe a local writer voting for their home coach, or maybe someone just wanted to be a contrarian. But with Mike Brown, every single voter put him first on their ballot.
Why? What was so completely undeniable about that Kings season?
It was the narrative of the drought. The Sacramento Kings had not made the playoffs in 16 consecutive years. 16. It was the longest active drought in all of North American professional sports. It was this dark cloud that hung over the entire city.
And Mike Brown came in.
He came in, he installed a historically efficient offense, he created that whole light the beam tradition which galvanized the fan base, and he broke the curse in his very first year.
So the story was perfect.
It was a perfect, undeniable story. And unlike the Warriors or the Bulls, where you could always argue, well, they have Michael Jordan or they have Steph Curry, the Kings were seen as a flawed roster with a losing history. Mike Brown got all the credit for the cultural transformation. He turned a losing culture into a winning one, seemingly overnight.
And it's interesting that Mike Brown had won the award before, too. He won it with LeBron and the Cavs way back in 2009, so he joins that multi-team club.
He does. And another recent repeat winner is Tom Thibodeau. He won with the Bulls in 2011. That was the Derrick Rose MVP year. And then he won it again with the New York Knicks in 2020-21.
Thibs is a very distinct brand of coaching, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Hard-nosed defense, lots of yelling, playing his starters heavy minutes. It's his signature.
And it seems to work, at least for turning franchises around. He took a Knicks team that had been a laughingstock for years and made them a tough, respectable playoff team instantly. Again, the award rewards the turnaround. He instilled discipline where there was none.
The quintessential example of the expectation gap at work.
So we've covered the mechanics, the legends, the curse, the anomalies. As we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to just step back for a second. When we look at this trophy, the Red Auerbach Trophy, what does it actually symbolize? Because we've established it's not always for the best coach in terms of wins. It's not usually the guy who wins the title. What is it really for?
I think it symbolizes the maximization of potential. That, to me, is the common thread that connects the 73-win Warriors of Steve Kerr and the 33-win Bulls of Johnny Kerr.
That's a great connection.
In both of those very different cases, the coach took what was on paper and squeezed every single drop of performance out of it. There was nothing left on the table.
It's an efficiency award, in a way.
I think so, yeah. It measures the delta between expectation and reality. How much better did you make this group of 12 guys than they had any right to be?
It also seems to measure the human element, the pure ability to get 12 different people, 12 different egos, to pull in the exact same direction for 6 months.
Oh, absolutely. In this era of advanced analytics and spreadsheets, the Coach of the Year award is often a nod to the psychological aspect of the game. It's about buy-in. You can have the best plays in the world drawn up on your clipboard, but if the players don't believe in you, you're going to lose.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought that has been nagging me since we discussed Doc Rivers and Johnny Kerr. We tend to glorify the coaches who win rings. We call them the greats, the legends, Pop, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach. But hearing all these stories, is it possible that the hardest coaching job, and therefore maybe the best coaching job, is actually done on the bad teams?
That is the provocative question, isn't it? Is it harder to steer a Ferrari that is designed to go 200 miles per hour? Or is it harder to take a beat-up old sedan with a leaking radiator and somehow coax it to go 60 miles per hour on the highway without breaking down?
Doc Rivers dragging that Magic team to a .500 record suggests that sometimes just finishing the race is the miracle, not winning it.
If the definition of the award is most integral to success, you could make a very strong argument that the coach of the bad team is more integral. If you took Phil Jackson off the 72-win Bulls, they might still win 60 games on talent alone. If you took Doc Rivers off that Magic team, they might have won 5.
That is something to chew on the next time you're watching a game and you see a coach screaming on the sideline of a team that's 10 games under .500. He might actually be doing the best job in the entire league, even if he never gets a trophy for it.
He just might be.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the people pacing the sidelines. Look past the box score, watch the timeouts, watch the body language between the players and the coach. That's where the real game is being played. Until the next deep dive.
Take care, everyone.